Yeah, it's John G. Sutton here. Tales from the Jails. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the way that some of the staff and indeed some of the inmates interfered with the food that both inmates and prisoners were eating. Because they work both ways, you see. It wasn't just one-way traffic. Although I'm sure that 99% of the staff were not aware of this. Sometimes the food that was being eaten by the officers was adulterated by the prisoners. I'll tell you how it happened when I first of all talk about what happened on D1, the block. I was down D1 at the block. They were serving lunch one day. I was there because they were short of staff. I wasn't a regular member of staff on D1. That was reserved for the likes of the Chinese money box, the school bully. They had a guy called Piggy and the Black Dog. Yeah, these were the regular staff. I was just filling in because they were short of staff or somebody was on leave or something. Anyway, I was down there this lunchtime, big tureen of soup to serve all the inmates on D1. And the officer who was working with me lifted it off the hot plate, which is like a metal hot plate, which was warmed by, I don't know, anyway. And he lifted it off, unzipped his trousers, whipped out his todger, and urinated into the soup. Urinated, splash, 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 quite a bit, quite a bladderful into the soup. I said, "For goodness sake, man, what are you doing?" He said, "They'll teach the bastards." I said, "In actual fact, this isn't going to teach them anything because they won't know." I said, "Only you will know this. What's it all about?" Anyway, the senior officer came up. I said, "Are you aware of what's going on here?" He said, "Get about your duties." In other words, just unlock them, get them out for lunch and put them back. And as for people pissing in the soup, say nothing, otherwise something will happen nasty to me. I was down at D1 and one of the silent cells, that's where people who have been kicking up in the prison are whipped down into D1, bums rush along the landing, all the clothes ripped off them. I mean, they didn't say, "Would you like to take your shirt off and get yourself into the cell?" No, oh no. The school bullying company gripped your shirt, ripped it off your back, ripped your vest off, underpants, shreddies, all the lot, shoes, socks, stark naked into the cell. Seriously. Anyway, they're still entitled to eat, supposedly. I was there one lunchtime, and they were serving somebody the meal in one of the silent cells. Call them the silent cells. 10 points for anybody who knows why they call them the silent cells. I'll tell you why. Because it didn't matter how loud you screamed, nobody was going to hear you. That's why they called them the silent cells. Seriously. It was a cell within a cell. So this guy who'd managed to get himself in the silent cells, start bollock naked, freezing cold, they got his lunch, which was just dished out by the hot plate orderlies and put on the lunch, and they got one of the staff, senior member of staff, got his hand in the dustbin and got some rubbish out of the dustbin and threw it into the meal onto the metal plate and mixed it all in, and then they opened the silent cell up and threw that in. I said to them, "Please, this individual does not deserve it." And the usual stuff I get, mind your own business. You're here for 10 minutes now, piss off. That's what they're saying to me, and I'm a member of staff, seriously. I was working on A1, and I was in the hospital. I was a hospital officer by this time, and the hospital, working on the clinic on A1 landing. Anybody who'd been in strange ways in the late 60s, 70s, early 80s would have known that A1 landing was where the medical clinic was. If you were on medication, you came down onto A1 and you were given whatever you were given, Largactil, diazepam, minor medication. If you were diabetic, you came down and you were injected by one of the hospital staff or whatever. That would be me and the guy I was working with at the time. Anyway, this guy at the time, he used to have an arrangement with the kitchen that they would send him some breakfast through. And one day I was working with him, and they brought the breakfast down to feed A1 landing, which was the hospital landing. And there was about 15, 16, 17 patients down there, or prisoners, as the staff preferred to call them. And I don't know why it got in his head. He thought that this was his breakfast. So this guy, he's about 6'2", you know, extremely large fellow, but about 17 stone, something like that. Went up to the breakfast tray, and there was about 16, 17 sausages on there, and eggs, and you know, some porridge and what have you. And he ate all the sausages. I stood and watched him. I couldn't believe it. You know, big's about this big. You know, not very wide, but you know, chipolata sausages type thing. You know, 3 at a time. Boom, all the lot gone. So all of A1 landing didn't get any sausages. Seriously. I ate all that. I saw that guy one day. Somebody came down and said, "I've got a terrible headache, boss. Terrible headache. Can't sleep at night. Waking up in the morning, pain in my head." Put your head, they had a little hatch, you know, where we dispense the medicine through the hatch. Anybody being strange, remember that? Yeah. Put your head through the hatch. This guy put his head through the hatch. He got a sticking plaster and an aspirin and stuck it to his head. He said, "You leave that there all day. Come back and see me tomorrow." He said, "His headache's gone." This guy's got an aspirin taped to his head. He thought that was amusing. This poor bastard who can't sleep, got a migraine. Who knows what he'd had? Yeah, no, see no doctor. Yeah. Anyway, I was working one day under the Rotunda where they served all the meals. Anybody been there? Come down, hot plates, yeah, all around. They put the meals on, the food in big tureens and what have you, big metal plate. Serve it out, you know, hot potatoes, mashed potatoes, whatever it was, you know. One day it was lamb chops. And this guy who was working there, he must have been in his early 50s, you know, about 52, 53, and he was coming right to the end of his service. He'd been there a long time, maybe 30 years service, something like that. And it was lamb chops, and he stood by the side of with the big tray with all the lamb chops on, and he picked the lamb chops up, and you know, lamb chops, they've got like a little meaty bit, and he poked the meaty bit out into his mouth, boom, and then threw the bone back onto the lamb chop thing. Next one. He'd done about 10 of them, maybe more than that. There was gravy and all dribbling down his tunic at the front. I thought he'd lost the plot, you know. I thought he'd perhaps gone insane, because you don't do that, do you? And the poor bloody inmates were coming up and they were getting their lunch, you know, and it consisted not of a lamb chop but of a bone. That's what they got for the dinner. Yeah. But little did the staff know that certain inmates who worked in the officers' mess, now listen to this, it's hard to believe, but at Strangeways Prison at the time, they had what's known as an officers' mess, where they served breakfast, lunch and evening meal, yeah? And they had, believe it or not, they didn't have external caterers to provide the food. No, the prison used prisoners, yeah, to make the food. So in the officers' mess, prisoners were cooking the officers' food. And of course, some of the prison officers were particularly disliked. And word gets around, you know. He's a right bastard, we'll fix him up, yeah. Now on Fridays, every Friday, they used to serve fish in at the officers' mess for lunch. And certain officers like this fish. And I just didn't, I never felt right about it. I never didn't eat there myself. I didn't. I used to, seriously, I used to take a grapefruit and I've had the grapefruit, cut the grapefruit in half, eat the grapefruit, and then I'd have a hard-boiled egg. That's what I had for my lunch. And some coffee that I took in a flask. I mean, it might seem a little bit strange to do that, but that's what I did, because I was training at the time, you know, running as I was going to the gym and all that. So I didn't get down and eat all that greasy stuff. But anyway, so fish is what they had at lunchtime. And I spoke to some of the inmates, and I could see that there was something wrong. And I said to one of them, because they used to get on all right with me, you know. I said, what's all this fucking giggling going on in the kitchen? You know, he said, I can't tell you, your boss, I can't tell you. I said, look, I don't care. I said, but I'm wondering what is going on. He said, well, you know that fish they're having for lunch? I said, yeah. I said, I don't eat there myself. He said, no. He said, I know, I've never seen you there. I said, I don't. I said, about running and what have you. I said, but tell me, what's all the laughter about? Because they were chuckling away. I had to go and pick them up, you see, after work one evening. You know, and they were all laughing away about this. He said, well, what we do is we get the fish, we put it into a big dish before we actually fry it and all the rest. And he said, we all take turns in pissing all over it. So we leave it to be marinated. So the officers' fish and chips or whatever it was that they had on Fridays was always marinated in piss. I suppose it's revenge, you know. I mean, I couldn't tell them. It would make them sick. I just left them get on with it, you know. Seriously. And that's why, if you go into prison, don't go and eat in the officer's mess. I tell you what, yeah, I don't know if they could taste any difference, but I wasn't risking it. Tales from the jails, yeah? Please subscribe, eh? And maybe read one of my books. I've written loads, you know. Seriously, HarperCollins, Bloomsbury. You look me up, John G. Sutton. Thank you. We will meet again.